All right, so what is going on, everybody? This video is why you need to stop worrying about views. So keep it short, straight to the point. Views do not always equal sales, right? And the reality is, a lot of times, especially content creators, they tend to fall into this trap of chasing vanity metrics, right? And so they'll be looking at things like, for example, how many views their videos get. And don't get me wrong, views can matter in some cases. It's not like views never matter. But what we have to understand is that not all views are created equal. So, what do I mean by this? So, let me be clear here first before I get into the reasoning on why you need to stop worrying so much about views alone. But let me be clear here first. Views alone by themselves does not equal money in the bank. It does not equal a successful business. It does not fix issues inside a business. And it does not fix the mindset issues, even that can hold a business back. Views, simply put, does not equal success in business. The two are not related one-to-one to each other. They're not correlated directly to each other, in my opinion, from everything I've learned. So this is not financial advice. I don't know your specific business, but I can tell you from my experience working in digital marketing the past 4 or 5 years that views does not equal sales, right? I've been able to crack on accounts where I was just, messing around, close to 2 million views on videos, over a million views on videos. That doesn't mean I'm making millions of dollars on those videos, right? And so we have to understand that not all views are created equal, and that in business, if you want to run a successful business, that is very different than being a content creator. This is the trap, and I'll get into this here in a second. This is the trap that a lot of content creators can fall into, is they think that because they're good at content, that they'll be good at running a business, right? And so they get all this great feedback, or they start to see all these likes and all these views coming in on their content because they're great at, they have a great personality, or whatever the case is. They're creative, right? And they're good behind a camera. And so they assume that means that if they start a business, that the business will just explode and be successful. And oftentimes that's not the case. It can happen, right? You can have a content creator who's also good at business, who understands business and who runs a successful business. But just because somebody gets a lot of views on their videos doesn't mean they're going to be able to be successful in business very easily, right? So why do views alone not equal sales? Well, let's give an example here. So the first thing we got to understand is how the algorithm actually works, right? What is it that they want to do? What is it that the platforms want to do? Well, they've engineered their algorithms to reward you essentially for keeping people on the platforms for longer. Now, why would they do that? Well, the longer you're on the platform, the more ads they're going to be able to show you, right? And the more ads they show you, the more money they make. And so it's all centered around everything that they're trying to do is designed to keep you on the platform for longer. They want to show you relevant content that you like and that you engage with and that you watch until the end, and then you keep watching and binging because it keeps you on the platform for longer. And the better the algorithm is at doing that, the more money they make because the more ads they will be able to show you, right? So that's in short kind of the basics of how social media algorithms work. So let's say, for example, I run you an engagement campaign. So let's say you come to me and you say, Aiden, I have a D2C brand. We're doing 30, 40, 50K plus a month, right? And we got some money saved up. We want you to run our ads, to manage our ads. So you bring me on and you work with me. And I say, you know what? I'm going to run an engagement campaign for you since you just want views, right? Let's say you have this idea and you're like, well, I just want to get views. I don't care about sales. I just want to get views, right? And so I say, you know what? I can get you millions of views, right? I can get you millions of views for cheap. And you say, well, sure, sign me up. So what we do is we run an engagement campaign, because engagement campaigns are going to get you very cheap impressions. It's going to get you very cheap views, but the reason those views are cheap is because they're lower quality impressions. Right? So you're going to get a lot of views. You might get some followers, you may get lots of likes, and you'll get it for a much cheaper cost than if you were running a conversion campaign. But what's going to happen when you run that campaign is it's not going to directly result in money coming into the bank, right? And for most businesses, the vast majority of businesses who run an engagement campaign, the effect that that's going to have on the business, especially D2C e-com businesses, it's probably going to be negligible. Like it doesn't make any sense to do that. But if we apply that same logic to our organic content and we say, well, I want to make this content that it's not speaking specifically to my target customer. It's not really selling the product in any way or providing a lot of value to the target customer. Let's say we want to make funny prank videos, or something like that. These funny videos that make people laugh. And don't get me wrong, that can be great, but it's not really providing value to the target customer. And so let's say we do that. You may get a lot of brand awareness, and over time that can have a difference, right? And then, if you have people engaging with your content, they're seeing your face. So it can make some difference in that aspect, right? But what you may find in some cases is that if this content is not engineered to actually drive sales and to actually get people to convert, or if the thing that they're buying it doesn't live up to the standards, right? Over time, that organic can become less and less effective, right? The fads and the trends of like a flashy product, they will eventually fade, right? And when they fade, you have to have a good business in place to still be able to be successful and ride that wave even after the wave comes crashing down, if that makes sense. So in other words, what I'm trying to say, if that was a bad example, what I'm trying to say is if you want to be successful in business, you can't just rely on the trends alone and on having a flashy product, because that will eventually fade, right? You can have a great product. You can have a unique product, but the business has to be dialed in also, right? And the trap here, I'll go to the next point, scroll down here. The trap that a lot of content creators fall into, and I'll give this example. There's a guy at the time I'm recording this right now who is getting a lot of heat online. No shade to him. He may be a good dude. I don't know. I don't know the guy personally, right? But he's a content creator and he's well known in this space. I'm not going to say his name. I don't want to throw shade at this guy or anything like that. But he's getting a lot of hate online right now for apparently not paying a bunch of money to commission-based salespeople or something like that. I don't know the full story, to be quite honest. But a lot of people are talking about how, what people don't realize is the reality of business when you are in the content creation space, right? And how most people would assume if they looked at this guy's social media that he has millions and millions of dollars, that he's super successful, that he's living this extravagant life. He's driving around in the luxury cars, he's got the expensive watches, all this stuff. They wouldn't have an idea that he was actually struggling financially and that he was actually getting a lot of heat online for apparently having some issues with whatever it was that he was selling, right? And don't get me wrong, those sorts of things can happen. You may have people who are unhappy here and there, but it sounds like he's gotten a lot of heat online for apparently, allegedly at least, I'm not calling him a scammer or anything like that. I don't know the guy. But allegedly, from what people are saying, they are making it out to be like he is scamming them of their money. He's selling them this expensive course where he doesn't even try to contact these people or anything. You can't even get a hold of him. And he charges them all this money for a very high ticket course. And allegedly, there's a lot of people reporting that they've basically gotten scammed from this guy, And here's the reality of business. No amount of ads, no amount of organic hacks, no amount of any of this stuff that you can do can fix a bad reputation or a bad business. Now, here's what I mean by that. You can be great at marketing. And I've learned a lot, over my past 4+ years. I've learned quite a lot being in the marketing space. You know, you can be great at marketing, but there will come a time, if you have a bad business, where the business will come crashing down, right? The hacks that you once relied on, the tricks to get more views organically, or whatever it is you want to talk about, right? All these things will eventually fade if you don't work on the business, right? If you just look for these hacks, you look for these shortcuts, some of them might work a little bit depending on what it is, right? But you can't hack your way around a bad business. That's the reality. And the trap that a lot of these content creators fall into is they start making this money, and they don't put a lot of focus on the customers with whatever it is that they're doing. They start putting all the focus on their ego, and I'm not calling anybody out specifically. I'm just saying a lot of people don't realize this. People who haven't actually been in the trenches, we're seeing stuff like this happen firsthand, like the guy that I was talking about, right, who is apparently having these issues. They don't realize that this stuff goes on. They think that what they see on social media is reality, and they don't realize, sometimes these guys are in 6+ figures in debt, and you may think they're making millions of dollars because they have a bunch of followers online. And you don't know about the 6+ figures of debt, 7 figures in debt in some cases, right? Because they've mismanaged their money and they're spending their money on stuff that they don't need, right? You don't know about that. You don't know about their lifestyle. There's some great ones out there. Don't get me wrong. There's some great content creators out there and stuff. But my point is that you don't know about their lifestyle from what you see on the internet. And the other thing, I'll say this too. A lot of times the people that you see, or the person that you get, I should say, on the internet may not be the same guy that they are, the same girl that they are outside of the camera. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're kind of the same person that they are behind the screen, or whatever. But a lot of times what you'll see is these people, in many cases, content creators especially, there is a tendency with content creators, from what I've seen personally, where these people are more likely to have a massive ego, right, about how it is that they go about doing things, where things have to be done their way, right? And they're more likely, from what I've seen at least, to go blow their money when they start making money, right? Because they may not understand the business side. They may be very creative. They may be great behind the camera. They may be a great salesman even, great at talking to people. Like a lot of these people you see online, these Miami course sellers and all this stuff, right? But the reality is they may not understand how a business should really work, right? They may know how to trick people into buying a product to make funny videos, or make these engaging pieces of content that get views, because they can talk really well behind the camera or whatever the case is. But when it comes down to it, they may not be very good at business because what they're offering may not be very good, because their goal is to just trick people into buying, and that's how their business model works with a lot of these people, where they sell a product and they don't worry about actually making the product better, stuff like that. And so this is the trap that you want to avoid if you are a content creator, is falling into this trap of not focusing on the business or blowing all your money, right? It's something that you see a lot in the content creator space. Just because somebody has followers doesn't mean that their business is going to succeed. It doesn't mean that they're going to make it in business. It can help. It can help a lot in some cases to have a good personal brand. But you know what can hurt you a lot too? Having a bad personal brand, having a bad reputation, or, for example, just not focusing on the business, blowing a bunch of money on stuff that you don't need, because you start to see that money come in when you should be reinvesting it into the business and into hiring more people, or having a big ego. Like I've said, that's another thing where it'll destroy your business faster than anything else. Having a massive ego and having this mindset of things have to be done my way. By gosh, I'm the creator. I'm the one who runs this business. So everything's got to be done the way that I say. And if it's not, it's going to be done my way. That mindset will destroy your business faster than anything else, right? And so avoid that trap. because a lot of people make this mistake where they want things done their way and they want to go into things with an ego mindset where they go into things that they don't understand, right? This is the problem. They go into paid ads, for example, and they say, you know what, by gosh, if my paid ads aren't working, it's their fault that it's not working. It's the marketing people's fault. Just like this guy in this example, who everybody's saying is or hasn't paid his salespeople or whatever, right? Apparently, and I don't know the full story here, they have said, like, hey, his business was struggling already when he came to them, right? And then they were having some issues with the paid ads or whatever, where they were only doing $50K a month or something, and he was trying to hit like $250,000+ a month or whatever. And then they go to a different agency, and the same thing happened. With another really good agency or whatever that he tried to work with, they had the same thing happen. And their argument there was, hey, look, you've gone to 2 different agencies, and the same thing has allegedly happened with both. Who's the common denominator there, right? And when we turned the ads off to try to help you, they were saying, look, your sales went to nothing because your organic isn't working as well anymore, probably because you're developing a bad reputation. People just aren't trusting you as much anymore, and they're not wanting to buy. And so running ads, and this is the mistake that a lot of people make, running ads is not going to fix a bad business. Ads will amplify what your business is already doing. If you've got a great business, you got a great products, you got great reviews, running ads can be a great thing. If your product's dialed in, your business is dialed in, but don't run the ads to try to fix the bad business. Don't run the ads to try to fix the fact that your sales keep declining and declining, because sometimes, maybe it works in some cases, but a lot of times what's going to happen, if there are major business issues that are causing that to happen, a lot of times what's going to happen, if that's the case, and you have major business issues that are causing your content to not hit as well, that are causing people to not buy as much from the content, and you don't fix those and you try to run ads, you are speeding up the process, in my opinion, of destroying your business and running out of money, right? So anyways, with that being said, that's about all I've got for this video. If you want me to maybe make some ads for your brand, or talk to me about ads, drop your brand name in the comments below. If you happen to see this, drop your brand name in the comments below, and maybe I can reach out to you. So with that being said, that is all I've got for now. So if you found this helpful, leave a like, comment below, and subscribe if you want to see more.